Hello, people, and welcome to another episode of Ball Over Passion after a comprehensive 3-0 win against Fulham away. I am back after being sick, so it's nice to see George and everyone in the comments. So, hope everyone's been well. Hope you've been better, George.
Yeah. Just tired, man. Just tired. Long work day, but happy to discuss a very comprehensive victory. I think one of our best first half performances of the season. So when you're having a look at it, there's a lot of good things to talk about that changed in this game, and it was probably the first time since a regular Gabriel Jesus game that you felt the attack flowed and it wasn't one
Mm,
sided, and it was very enjoyable to watch. And I think um, the game was beautiful. To be honest with you, there's a couple goals that we didn't score that could have been goals of the season. That's
yeah.
how high quality the attacking play was. So excited to talk about it.
Before we get into the first half, which one was your favorite? I think the Xhaka one. I think if he scores that, I think that's the one for me where I'm just like, that's one of the best goals I've seen in the division this season.
Yeah, there's just so many, and even the William Saliba dribble that you do,
Mm,
even though the shot was always going over the bar, just the fact that he steps out into kind of midfield and does that carry, it was just the entire team was brimming with confidence, and there was a lot of MVPs that you could have selected for this match. There was just a collective, very high level shown, and it's not easy to this Fulham side. I know that they are a side without Paulinho, and they are a side that have conceded the most XG in the division, but they are where they are for a reason in terms of being eighth. And this did not seem like a first versus eighth matchup. This seemed like a first versus relegation matchup. And Craven Cottage is not an easy place to go to. So I think all in all, when you have a look at it, it's a phenomenal day for Arsenal. It's a phenomenal day for Mikel, and it's a phenomenal day for all our injured returning players. To do this without full strength, which is a caveat that I just don't see enough of on the timeline. I mean, this in theory was still half strength. This is not our full strength 11, and it was just incredible to see.
I mean, for me, I mean, we might as well get into the first half. For me, the first half, as you mentioned, the start is obviously is quick, but what I enjoyed a lot was the almost Brighton like press baiting. I really liked how we drew them in with possession and especially distributing across the back three and then just sort of snapped into life. So uh, I just think that there's a real um, maturity shown, especially away from home, to be a bit calmer, not be so haphazard, and was try to zip the ball across at pace, but draw their press in because that mid block is still one of the best in the league. So to draw the press out and really get form those spaces in the midfield, I think that was the key for me. I think that was very very good to see, and it was something that I think if you're going to come up against one of these teams, a Brentford, Fulham, even a Brighton at times, that you're going to have to, be a bit more composed because they're so good at not controlling the game, but just being able to dictate how they want to play, no matter who they're playing. So to be able to force our style of football on them is was so key.
Well, I think when you have a look at kind of what Fulham brought, right, they have this very simple 4-3-3 structure, and how kind of Arsenal looked to kind of destroy that was we built in our typical 3-2-5. And so, just fundamentally, what that means is when they're pressing the three in terms of Mitrovic coming through the middle, and we have a back three of White, Saliba, Gabriel, and of course, Thomas Partey floating in the first phase along with Zinchenko, you've constantly got a mismatch, right? So, even though that they've got a front three that look to try to press, you constantly have five that are building up. And so it opened up angles, and it was just very, very easy. And I feel that Zinchenko allowed a lot of mobility between the lines as well, made a lot of what Arsenal did unpredictable. But really, Thomas Partey had an unbelievable game. It was one of his better games this entire season. And in between both him and Zinchenko, they kind of alternated and was very fluid in their build up. So while Fulham tried to press our back three with their kind of front three, they took turns in terms of joining the front line, and one and the other just were slightly ahead than each other. And it kind of made for, like we said, this kind of 3v5 situation. and I don't think Fulham could really cope. We were very quick in terms of breaking out under that pressure, and that initial press by Fulham was excellent. By the way, like I was seeing a lot of stuff on the timeline where they attempted to mark 1v1 in our terms of our double pivot, but Arsenal kind of took control, and they didn't manage to do it well at all because we kept having a numerical advantage in the back line. So between both Zinchenko and Partey, we were able to kind of increase uh, our lines and get up the pitch very, very quickly. And their press meant that we took out quite a few people very quick. And another person who had a very good game was Granit Xhaka as well. Granit Xhaka had a much better return to his form of late. And when the double pivot was able to kind of rework their back line, Xhaka was incredibly intelligent to attack spaces and combined extremely well with Martinelli. So we were able to create a massive distance between the front three of Fulham and their kind of midfield three. And we did almost the reverse of Aston Villa. If anybody kind of remembers how we conceded that goal, we made Fulham do that, and it was just excellent to see.
I mean, the other thing, especially with Xhaka, the ability to operate in both lanes 4 and 5 and really be able to attack the width as well as be a bit more narrow. I think that was so key to his performance, and I think that's what's so key to his season is the ability to be adapt to the width a lot more this season and really accept that ability to receive wide and produce. So I remember, I mean, we talk about, for example, the offside goal that Martinelli had, which was obviously marginal, but it did look offside. I did say at the time, like I remember saying in the group, look, that looks offside. I mean, it was close, but it was offside. So his ability to swivel and turn and get the ball to Martinelli between the lines and really hit that channel between fullback and centre back and really get through and find the space for him, I think was I think that epitomized what the positives, as you mentioned, the ability to pick and find spaces in between the lines. I think that chance epitomized that principle that you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't just in the attacking phase. I feel as though even in the defensive phase, like the work that Granit Xhaka and Thomas Partey did to man mark Reed and Lukic in the middle of the park meant that Fulham weren't able to get out themselves when they did get possession of the ball. And they were able to kind of repeat this man marking scheme no matter where they would go, and it kind of controlled Fulham's buildup. I think if you look back, Martinelli kind of cheated in this game. Instead of going high as he normally does with our wingers, he kind of stayed in the midfield line just a bit and allowed Thomas Partey and Granit Xhaka to be 1v1 with their kind of pivot assignments. And so, despite kind of Fulham trying to kind of break free from the Arsenal midfield, Partey and Granit Xhaka worked together to collect second balls and really pin Fulham in, and it was just impossible for them to take it on the turn and go. And it was really impressive, the man marking job that we managed to do in midfield. Again, it's not new. We've been doing this all season in our press, but I think the interesting thing was having Martinelli drop into the middle of the park a little bit more, and it allowed for a lot more focused man-to-man on the ball side kind of marker. So if, Tosin had it, Trossard, Odegaard, and Martinelli would step up and Saka would join the midfield deeper, but it would allow Partey and Granit Xhaka to man mark kind of Reed and Lucic. And so that kind of switched if the ball was switched on the left-hand side where, Trossard was high along with Odegaard and Saka. But again, the man marking job of our pivot meant that, Martinelli as the winger dropped into midfield to control any kind of transition, which again, I think that's a little bit of smart kind of adjustment by Mikel Arteta. And it was really a direct result, I think, of Sporting and kind of the amount of transitions that we've had recently. So it was very clear that he isolated that as a problem. And of course, look, Arsenal, in terms of what we did in possession, we did what we do best. And I definitely want to talk about the first goal quickly so that we can get to the second goal, because that second goal was absolutely incredible. There's a lot of stuff that we did. It was probably my favorite goal of the season, or at least up there. So
Yeah.
Maybe get into the first couple scares of the match, let's say.
I mean, before we do, and I do want to get into the first goal quickly. I don't want to spend 3 hours here, but the one point I want to make, and this is something I was going to make on the pod regardless, um, is the role of Granit Xhaka. I think a lot of people are talking, especially online, about how we need to replace him, we need to replace him, we need to replace him, and they're throwing names out that do not suit the profile that Granit Xhaka is meant to be providing. I think if you want that more final ball orientated eight, you've got Fabio Vieira to do that. If you're going to talk about a Granit Xhaka replacement, you need to talk about someone that does what you just mentioned. You need to have someone that is great at hoovering second balls, can make underlapping and overlapping runs, is comfortable out wide and inside, and is able to connect, drop in, and build if needed to be, as well as be comfortable in areas wider, a bit lower down the pitch if we needed to build wide as well. That's not an Alexis McAllister. That's not a who else am I hearing this? The
Well,
new
it's this idea of an all phase midfielder that's Gundogan. Look, I'm not gonna shy away. You know, I was the first one I think that said let's get Alexis McAllister when his contract was coming to an end, and it was prior to him renewing. And of course, in classic fashion, once I made a post, he kind of renewed. A couple weeks later, it made sense from a depth perspective. But when you're talking about replacing Granit Xhaka, there are a couple things that people neglect to mention, and they suggest profiles of players that aren't proficient in this. So when you talk about the second ball maneuvering and the man marking job, by the way, the stamina to create and cover that kind of ground is not something that McAllister is going to do. He offers you quite a bit in possession. He probably has a little bit more fluid hips, but Granit Xhaka offers a ton on the ball in between the half spaces. And I think just transitioning it to something and not getting too much into the transfer doldrums, when you
Hmm.
start to analyze the first chance of the match when Granit Xhaka is high and he kind of releases Martinelli, who, yes, is a bit offside, but that's on him. What Granit Xhaka does in that play is extremely
It's
smart.
timing of run, yeah,
It's
100%.
self-aware. He's coming and he's arriving late, and he releases the ball at the correct time. And by the way, he's drawn two or three players in to create the space for Martinelli to run into.
I mean, Kenny Tete doesn't really have a choice.
Mm.
He's high for a reason, and he's been caught, so he's always going to be backtracking in that position. But I just want to make sure before we go, because I do want to get into the first goal now. But the last point I'm going to make is when you're talking about replacing players, you have to think about what they do for the team, because we're not this team that has one sitter that just does all the dirty work and then distributes, and then have two eights. We're not Man City. We are Arsenal. We have a secondary midfielder who's able to do the defensive work as well as advance the ball and be a threat in the final third. We've never been under Mikel Arteta a sole lone pivot team in any phase of play. So this idea that we're suddenly going to transition to a 3-1-6 type model, it's not something we do well. You look at Brighton last year when we tried it, it just doesn't work. We're not that team. So I really feel that people need to think about things here, because that's not who we are. But I do want to get into the first goal. Um, I think the best thing about it was, Gabriel getting back on the goal sheet. So, look, I think the corner, we've been talking about corners a lot recently, more in a defensive situation because we've been a bit leaky as of late. But to get Gabriel on the score sheet is something that uh, well worked goal. And as we were saying, I was saying anyway before the game, if there's one goalkeeper that you want to put it on his head and see what happens, it's Bird Leno. So we've all known that he's a bit of a flapper when it comes to these set pieces. So good goal for Gabriel, and something that I'm really happy to see him get a goal on the goal sheet.
Well, it's his 10th goal across 3 seasons of headed. He is officially the most potent center back in the league from scoring from set pieces. And I kept remember highlighting this from previous discussions on Gabriel. There was a lot of crap on the timeline, and since November, he's been the most consistent left center back in the league. And um, it's not a shock to see him performing the consistency with and the maturity that he is. By the way, I think this is just a typical routine goal. I don't think there's anything tactical about this beyond a pretty solid delivery by Trossard. That's one thing that I did want to mention, and we do have to have a section on Trossard because another player who was incredible all match. But this is a guy that has phenomenal delivery, excellent ball striking, both feet, but he was also offering himself as a +1 in the build-up so excellently, which was phenomenal. And on this goal at least, it's just a very simple delivery into the mix zone, and Gabriel gets up, and Leno doesn't come. It's definitely a mistake from Leno. He should be coming to claim and be a lot more authoritative in his box, but shock horror, Leno not doing that is something that we've come to know as Arsenal fans. But when you talk about Trossard, and we'll get into it maybe in some of the other areas and goals at least, but he offered himself so brilliantly in the first phase, kind of faking players in terms of receiving either foot. I was talking, both in group chats and in other areas where I feel that down the line, Trossard is very much somebody that I see transitioning a la Cazorla into a deeper center midfielder. And it's because of his ability to receive on the half turn, both feet. It's because his delivery, both feet, by the way, is excellent. But really, it's his decision making and spatial awareness is just excellent. And it's not just the final third. Even the amount of times that he received in his own box, sold a dream to a press, turned and played the right ball into space was immense. And it didn't matter whether it was left, right. He's somebody that's very comfortable in close combination, has very quick feet, and has, again, excellent pinpoint delivery, whether that's from his weak foot or his strong foot. So it's definitely somebody that I feel that we've got a steal on. The 27 million pounds all in, 21 upfront fee, and then another 6 million in add-ons seems cheap for somebody of his quality.
It
And
is cheap.
it's extremely cheap, and it's something, again, I feel he ends up a center midfielder down the line, and he isn't just providing 1 or 2 years. I think he's going to provide 4 or 5 years of excellent service, where for now we need his efficiency in the front line. But some of the stuff that he was doing in this game, offering himself deep and not being phased, and coming and driving the Fulham press, and then offering a deft touch to kind of release people, that was Santi Cazorla.
I mean, the other thing I want to mention is, in terms of Santi Cazorla and this Trossard comparison, both came in at the same age, both are diminutive, very, very quick with both feet, both are pretty ambipedal, both have this ability to evade contact in tight spaces and have great ball manipulation. So there is a lot of similarities. My whole thing is I don't know where he fits in as an 8. We have so many 8s at the club. That's the only thing I'm thinking of. I'm like thinking, hang on a
I think the
second.
left half space. I think
Yeah, I mean, I can see it, but like when you talk about the 8s coming through, you talk about Amaz Lewis Skelly, you talk about whoever if we do buy someone at 8, it's going to be difficult to see him really get
see,
in there.
I don't think this. He is a major part why I don't understand when people are telling me to buy an 8. Because when you have a look at
I'm in the
him,
no buy an 8 camp myself. I don't really see the point.
well, I not only do I not see the point, we'll talk about transfers another day, but I refute the idea that we buy an 8. The fact that Declan Rice is coming, I think it's only one central midfielder, and that's all that we should need. By the way, it's not something that we need desperately, but a big part is because I do think that we've got players now that are going to be moving deeper down the line, and I think what Trossard showed here, his effectiveness, but his ball usage is so clinical. It screams to me somebody in the middle of the park, because it's not somebody that just is involved touchline. He wasn't just offering himself as a solution on the wing. He was a very big part of how we got out. And this idea that people compare him to Gabriel Jesus, he definitely joins both sides, but I think he's come a lot deeper than Gabriel Jesus does.
I've seen him literally in what you'd say opposition box 14, but like at our D, and like and help build at
He was in
times.
our own box
Yeah.
many
So
times picking it up.
this is the thing. So I just think the difference between the two, I think his tackling technique's underrated as well. I think people just look at him as diminutive and don't really see him really have that ability to steal the ball. He's very good at just nicking a ball. I don't
And
think
his stamina. And his stamina in
yeah.
the press is phenomenal. He's very intense meeting markers.
Yeah, and I mean that's one thing. If you've got George Bingo open, that is a George Bingo, a lovely phrase for the card, but I think we need to move on to the second goal because I know you want to talk a lot about it. So go for it, mate. I know it's a lot. It's a very very well worked goal.
Yeah, it's beautiful football. It really is beautiful football. You know, when you have a look at kind of the buildup, Arsenal do what they do best. They drag the opponent to one flank and then they draw their players in. And William Saliba in this match, again, somebody that I don't think got the praise that he deserved. I mean, we managed to draw. Uh, if you have a chance to look back, which I encourage everyone to do, we managed to draw 8 players of Fulham to the right hand side of the pitch in terms of their press, trying to rob. And we do it through patient buildup, through patient passing. We don't draw, we don't rush our lines. And then finally, William Saliba gets the ball back from Gabriel, by the way. Um, and he has the presence of mind with his weak foot to just switch quickly to Granit Xhaka, who, by the way, is calling for it in acres of space. And we've taken out 6 players of Fulham's press immediately. And Granit Xhaka is off. He's transitioning, and you're attacking kind of the back line 5v4 at this point, and everyone's crashing the box. And I think Granit Xhaka carries. He does well. He makes the correct decision in space. Um, and it was just Trossard. He kind of makes this goal, if you really want to call it. Martinelli in the 9 position, so cough cough, nudge nudge. He's making that central run. But Trossard is able to kind of stand up his defender and then place a cross, which is beautiful in between Tete, or sorry, not Tete, Robinson and Ream, and
Yeah.
he kind of forces Robinson not to foul him. I remember we were having a debate in the group chat about it. I don't know if it was lazy. I think it's the run. If you have a look at Martinelli, he does not sprint right away. He times his run brilliantly and it forces a decision because Ream is not picking up anybody in the middle of the box. And Robinson doesn't know to get in front of him. Gabriel Martinelli has already got goal side. So if he goes through the back of Martinelli, it's a penalty. So he can't touch him. So
I mean, the best thing about it for me is I just think that seeing a I just think that the rotation in the front line is so crucial because the minute that Martinelli went more central, became alive, everything just started to tick. We saw his movement in the box, obviously, getting his head on a ball, which people seem to have they thought that was it was just under Emery. He's always been the lead area. I don't know where this idea comes from. Oh, he scored a couple of aerial goals under Emery, so people think no, he's decent, very good in the air. He contests his duels very well. I don't know where this idea that he's a bit of a fairy in the air came from. But yeah,
he's one of the best aerial headers of the ball, not
it's
just in the squad
ridiculous.
but in
It's
the league.
actually ridiculous. Like just not even qualitatively, like the number of aerial duels that we could contest as well, quantitatively as well. It's just I don't understand. But yeah, a lovely header. I don't think Leno had a chance. The cross from Trossard, obviously we've mentioned his ball manipulation, his ability to use either foot. He shifts and gets the cross in very well. But yeah, as you mentioned, the build up, obviously, the patience, as I was mentioning before, in earlier in the podcast about how we weren't rushing things, we were taking our time and really picking our moments, and we went from slow to quick. That transition very well. That ability to just find the correct ball into Xhaka and get the play going in the correct moment. I think that's the key point. We weren't trying to force it. We were looking for the correct moment, and then we go through the motions. So yeah, very happy with the second goal. And as you mentioned, it was something you can pin as an Arteta goal. Oh, let's put
Yeah,
the back.
no, absolutely, and I think also the one thing that you must say is Grant Xhaka fizzes that into Trossard. um, for me, he probably should have got in between Tete and Tosin, but I'm not complaining too much. But I think Trossard kills that with his first touch beautifully, and then of course, look, he isolates Tete really, really well, and he stands up a beautiful cross for Martinelli just to have a really simple home or header home. But again, because we're going to have to talk about it. Like I did want to get your opinion on Trossard. I know we did a little bit at the beginning of the pod, but for me, when I talk about him potentially being a central midfielder option, how many times did you see him create kind of a positional superiority by dropping off? And it wasn't a system thing. He dropped in between the Fulham press to offer himself to both Xhaka and Gabriel in space. And his passes were insanely accurate. In 34 attempts, he only missed 7 passes. And he made beautiful runs and key passes in between the box. We know that's not really a secret, but I think a big part of Arsenal's control came from the fact that Trossard was able to offer himself as a +1 in deeper zones when the system didn't necessarily allow it. And so Fulham weren't able to pin us back in. We've already talked about how their press was kind of disjointed, but I think Trossard's role in that first half dominance can't be understated.
No, of course not. And I think the best way to describe it is an ability to overwhelm a man-to-man press. I think if you look at how they pressed, they were very man-to-man. They looked to try and cut off passing lanes by sticking to, for example, the DM and both wingers, and jumping at the correct time, really being aggressive with their jumps. So to have someone that literally, it doesn't matter if you jump, you still haven't got the numbers to be able to contain Arsenal. It's crucial because you don't have that ability to from a pressing sense to pen people in, because there's no extra man. You're not sacrificing a centre back to push up to really find a Trossard in that situation. So they didn't find a solution to that, and that was crucial because you can play around a man-to-man press then.
And
And
there
then
was a couple of chances as well, like currently, like after the second goal, when you have a look, like Trossard gets a shot in the middle of the box that goes just wide from his left foot, and it's beautiful. But there's one person that I want to highlight again, doing the dirty work, is Granit Xhaka. He allows Martinelli to join in the penalty box, and he does that beautiful Cruyff turn to give it to kind of Trossard. But the only reason that both of them can be central at the same time is because Granit Xhaka makes an unselfish run to push Kenny Tete back. And I think that's gonna be the difference when you start talking about who do we buy, who do we do this, and you start talking about future things. Where are you going to get somebody that has the intelligence to understand those zones? Because if you have a look at it, Granit Xhaka has evolved from a so-called pivot player only to somebody that we used in the left back position to kind of free Kieran Tierney, to then being a high 8 position, and to now having this hybrid role of picking his moments when to join the attack and when not to. It's an insane amount of game intelligence. It's an insane amount of availability and stamina to keep making those runs, because he is what gives the platform for Martinelli, Trossard, and Bukayo Saka to be in the box central all at the one time, right?
yeah,
And if you don't have somebody making that run, and it doesn't have to be him, it could be your left back, but we know our left back's deeper. So we need to have our central midfielder able to push on beyond the last line to stretch the defenses in that way. And I think Trossard doesn't just stop there. It wasn't just the shot. I think towards the end of the half, he has another chance where he drifts this time instead of centrally. He drifts to the right-hand side, and he has a beautiful chip ball for Bukayo Saka into the box. And Saka, kind of throws it out back to Ben White, who does a beautiful weak foot, left-footed cross, back post for Martinelli, who really should do better before we get to the third goal. That cross by Ben White is something else. I remember
weak foot as
talking
well.
weak foot. I remember telling so many people when we had debates on Tomiyasu versus Ben White, it's not just the straight line kind of ground running power that he has. He has an insane crossing variety. And everybody kept arguing with me. And, people felt that Tomiyasu was better in the final third. This guy has something special. We still haven't seen it. The trajectory on that current, I don't think it's gotten talked about enough. Like, that was incredible of a weak foot cross that was accurate. It was struck clean through, and it was just beautiful. Martinelli really should be doing better in that chance.
The one thing I will say, and this involves both White and Trossard, is the ability to create not only vertical but horizontal supremacy, just in terms of qualitative numbers. So just to explain what I mean is, we build in a 3, as we know, we usually build in a 3. In this game especially, we build in a 3. So as we've talked about, the press is very man to man. So when you have Zinchenko, and Zinchenko has this ability to play either outside or inside. So if Zinchenko vacates that wide channel, and the fullback then produces, then has to come inside to match up with with the fullback, then you have the ability to have a free lane on that side. So, for example, a Granit Xhaka or a Trossard can then go into that space and create and pick up and turn and move the ball into in and move through the lines. And the same thing you can have vertically as well, because if there's if there's no one tracking the run of Zinchenko going wide, if there's no one in the middle there, for example, because if Xhaka is a bit more further up, it then creates the situation where Trossard can drop into that space and then pick up and turn. So we're creating gaps in which players can vacate and then fill in. Different players can fill in for those specific zones. And the same thing happens on the right when Ben White goes a bit higher, and it creates that side on the right where he's high, and therefore the three becomes a two, and the basically either Saka drops a bit deeper to fill that zone, or we can have, for example, a Martin pulling wide into those wide areas to fill that lane one. So you have an ability on both sides to create overloads in but not only vertical but horizontal situations, so that you're creating constant abilities for your players to be in zones they're comfortable in. And that's what I think we did so well against Fulham. We were able to create zones of space for players instead of just being sort of, okay, we're going to go 3-2 or 2-3 and, zip the ball around and then we'll find it the next phase. We were creating spaces using our build up for other players to drop and pick and then run, which I think that was so crucial in that first half.
Well, look, I again, I will never stop at a chance to narcissistically pat myself on the back with the Ben White thing, because I heard a lot of stuff that I didn't understand. His capacity to learn, his capacity to anticipate danger is probably the best in the world. To be honest with you, Carlos Cuesta, was talking about that in the Amazon documentary. But again, I think to be able to generate that cross from deep with your left foot, by the way, where Kenny Tete has no idea that Martinelli is back post like that, that has to be a pinpoint accurate ball. And if this was coming from any other player, I think we'd be shouting how ambipedal they were. And this term gets thrown around far too often, by the way, because people would describe Tomiyasu as ambipedal, but Tomiyasu does not have that in his locker. No chance. And
I mean, Tomiyasu is, I would say,
well, he can receive on both feet. That's not ambipedal.
Tomiyasu is ambipedal, but there's degrees of it. Like
Well, this is the
he's
point.
someone that can receive on both feet and
Well,
play through the lines on both feet, but he doesn't have the whip on his crosses from his left like he would
well,
on
this
his
is
right.
kind of what I'm getting at, though, mate. Like, people say the word and it's a buzzword, and they don't use it in the correct application. I mean, receiving both feet is not the same as being able to,
Can we just be honest? People just throw the term around without watching players.
no,
Let's call a spade a spade. Like,
of
people just throw the term around because they think it's something that people will read and be like, "Oh, he's a good player because he's ambipedal." I've seen it plenty of times, mate.
Of course, but this is the difference. So when you talk about application and you talk about receiving, this is the difference, and this is what Ben White gives you. And not to really stick on topic, but that was a phenomenal cross. It's something that I don't think that we're going to see the last of back post. By the way, there's another one. I think he has that half space cross in his locker. The way to do that with your weak foot is just absolutely incredible. And yeah, Martinelli needs to do better in terms of finishing that, but also when you have a look at the third goal, Thomas Partey does excellent job to kind of raw pressure in the middle of the park with a good header, sets Bukayo Saka off, who in transition makes a great call to kind of send it wide to Martinelli, who again drops Trossard, and he's again in that left half space, and he himself delivers another weak foot pinpoint cross to Martin Odegaard, who finishes very well. And that's not something that we've always said of Martin in the middle of the box, but here he's very composed, and it's something I forget what kind of goal tally he's on, but he's got to be something like 10 goals.
He's out. He
Um,
is on 10 goals.
like
He's on 10 goals.
exactly, and so this again comes from another player delivering a weak-footed cross, which I don't know if people clocked onto, but it's phenomenal, and you end the
Well,
half.
this is the type of goal that Martin, you would bank on Martin making these kind of goals. This is the kind of goal I think he specializes in. Even on loan, we were saying this is the kind of goal that we expect from Martin Odegaard, arriving and just hitting the ball in the box. I think that is his type of goal. That's a signature Martin Odegaard goal.
I
So
mean, it's on his left foot. You'd be screaming at high heaven with a miss there because it goes over the defender, and he makes the most of it. He's composed. It's excellent work. I think it all comes from the cross from Trossard because he basically kills the defender at that point, and he sets Martin to kind of go 1v1 really with his defender. And it's beautiful. It's quick. It's incisive play. And it's the best way to kind of end the half ultimately. When you have a look at it, you've got it from a Gabriel header, and you've got it from two weak foot crosses. One being a build-up masterclass goal, and then the third being a weak foot cross where you should have scored kind of moments earlier from a Ben White one. So the score flattered Fulham quite a bit. Could easily have been 4 or 5 in the first half. What did you make of kind of the start of the second half? Even though it was, a little bit slow, I would say there was a 10-minute period that Fulham had some momentum, but it didn't result in any dangerous situations. There was a good save that Aaron Ramsdale makes in the 68th minute from a low shot,
mm,
but beyond that, very little, and it came from a transition. So I mean, I think it's Cordova Reed. I never say his name correctly, but he
that is his
receives
name, correct?
but he receives kind of in the box, and it's a very sharp save by Ramsdale. Another player that on the timeline people I'm seeing lunacy about for some reason.
I don't even want to get into it.
No, I'm not gonna get into it. But again, this is another point that I'm gonna make where in an important moment he steps up. Like this is away from home early in the half. He needs to make that save. You don't want to give an opportunity for the crowd to get on your back, and he does everything right here, and he parries beautifully away from the center of the park. So, yeah, that was probably the only moment that Fulham had an opportunity at our goal that had any significant danger. And you kind of then end the half. There was like a quick corner routine, to be fair, that Tosin heads off the bar. That we could maybe
Yeah,
do a bit better on defending. Another comment on the defending set pieces thing. But beyond those two moments from Fulham, there was never, any worry about me conceding. And the Tosin header, if you go back again, he's unmarked, and it's probably actually Mitrovic who actually gets there. They both go for the header, but that again is for me a concentration thing. So when people talk about what's the reason that we're conceding defensive set pieces like that, um,
just before the best way to put it is if you think back to Bournemouth, right? The Senesi header is another lapse in concentration. That time it was Thomas Partey. Like we have these lapses of concentration on defensive set pieces, and it's not acceptable. If we're
mm,
going to be winning titles, we have 11 cup finals. We can't be just letting these kind of these silly goals go. We're going to have to tighten up, and we're going to have to focus. And that's something I really feel like Mikel has to drill into these guys because this is it. This is the time. Run-ins here.
mm,
So you gotta really think about these things and think, look, do you really want this title? If you really want this title, we're gonna have to, fix up now because we can't keep letting these things slide. We have games against Liverpool, Newcastle, etc., etc. So look, I think that we got lucky with that one. I think personally, you're right. You are right. He did lose his marker and was free, but you asked what did I make of the second half as a whole? I think that was unworrying. I think we were pretty unflappable. We managed the game, we quieted it down, and we got our players off. We got players on, no injuries. A nice little Gabriel Jesus cameo
Well,
where
why don't we end on kind of some of the cameos of some returning
yeah, I mean,
injured
let's start
players?
with Jesus. Did you cheer the BCM like I did? I mean, that was I the funniest moment I think of the entire day was the entire timeline just cheering is another BCM for Gabriel Jesus. So look, he came on, he had a couple of nice touches. That was that lovely little turn and touch he had to help set up his chance. Um, look, it's always going to be nice seeing him back. There's always a nice little cameo for him, and I think the next two games are going to be used to get him up to fitness. I think Sporting he'll have a cameo, and Palace I think he'll also have a cameo, and then he'll continue to build up over the international break because as me and you have mentioned in DMs to each other, he needs to be fit for this run-in. And to just, I don't really feel like he's at a position where he should be starting right now. I know Mikel's talking about how he's going to have to earn his place back, but we've got to talk about fitness
I'm okay
as
with
well.
him
We've
to
got to ramp
start.
him up, get him at full speed because,
Well, it depends, right? Like because I'm okay for him to start Sporting, let's say, and he's due a 60 minutes, so he's kind of come through 20 minutes unscathed. Um, it's fine for me to kind of stress again the system with a 60-minute run. So I'm fine for him to start, but then be kind of subbed off kind of in the Sporting game quite early in like one of our first substitutes. And I actually think that would be a great game for him because there's going to be a lot of space. It'll be at home as well. Sporting have a very uh, poor back line with their two suspensions of their center backs. So I think it's a much easier game than Palace. Like if you were planning as a sports guy to give Gabriel Jesus minutes versus Palace or Sporting, I would give him more minutes versus Sporting if you had to between the two. So I'd probably look at a 60-minute and then like a cameo appearance at Palace and kind of let him train over the international break, and then you could say
yeah.
he's back and he's
No,
able.
I hear that. I mean, I think obviously we've both said from a fitness perspective, he's been fit for like 3 weeks now. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah,
Like, I think that
he's far too sharp not to be. Like when he
yeah,
came
like,
on, the touches were unbelievable, and look, you laugh about the big chance missed, but even in terms of the dribble and his involvement with other players, like it was so sharp, like the little back heels, the passing and the shape, and okay, yes, he missed his big chance, so, haha, but for him to go through a couple players like that, it was phenomenal. So I agree with you. I don't, well, not just I agree with you. I've been saying it in DMs, and people have made comments, but the fact that he has come back so sharp kind of should show that he was definitely something 50-50, even as far as the last Sporting game. I think he's been fit for a while, and they've been almost wanting to make
I think
sure.
it's more than I've been saying for a while. I thought Bournemouth was the game for
Well,
me.
even
That
I even think before that, like I think he's been fit, and like we've said, well, look, I make no mistake about saying, the big reason I haven't been able to talk about a title challenge for me has been because of Gabriel Jesus' injury and the fact if you were to tell me, are you going to miss him for 3 months or 6 months? That's a huge issue. You can't account for that. So I'm sure the medical department are, um, he's passed every metric, but I think they've been overly cautious, and they've done the same with Nelson and Emil Smith Rowe. By the way, he was another, quick cameo
yeah,
in the game. Who I don't know if I saw anything. If I'm really being fair, I think he wasn't on long enough. But look, he puts himself about, and we saw from his more sporting cameo the excitement of what that right hand side could look like with him. And we're getting players back, and I guess this could be something for you as a quick question, mate. So look, I don't know if
here we go.
I don't know if I agree with this because actually our two forwards in Gabriel Jesus and Eddie Nketiah have underperformed their XG massively. But sure, recently we've done really well in front of goal. Do you
George.
think we need a killer? I'm not going to say
Hmm.
striker because people are just going positions now and you get caught up in these stupid debates. But do you believe that we need another marquee forward of output, or are we fine with what we have?
George, what is the current profile of striker?
What do you mean? Like Jesus?
No, my strikers are
No, yours
big.
are Weghorst.
Mine's of big men who have a basically the ability on the half turn, ability to connect the strikers and be able to link up play both in the air and on the floor, as well as being killers in front of goal. That's my profile of striker. If we think about what we have at the club is an excess of strikers. We have too many strikers. We have a lot of strikers at the club. Do we need a striker? I don't know. I feel like we're going to sell strikers this summer. I don't know whether it be one or two, but we are going to be selling strikers. I think. Would I love a Victor Osimhen? Yes, I would love a Victor Osimhen. But would I do I think we're going to get a Victor Osimhen? No. Do I think that we're going to get a Benjamin Sesko? No, I don't think we're going to get someone of that ilk. I think that we're going to be looking at Valerian Balogun and Eddie Nketiah. One of these two is staying, one of these two is leaving. After that, I don't know, because I personally think Martinelli is the striker of the future, and I know you do as well. I think that has to be the move. I feel like he's not a left winger, so I feel like the move is a Martinelli, Saka, and then a left wing.
It may take a while for them to see it, but they all come and join the darkness in the end
So
of Martinelli 9. We've seen this quite a bit, but
yeah,
even broadly, like I don't want to get in these position debates because people are very tribal, but do we need another forward? Yes, we need another forward. I don't believe that with what we have, by the way, right now, it's enough for the Champions League as well as the Premier League because that's what we need to compete. And, I think whether we do it this season or not, we'll probably have a debate over the international break about kind of title challenging credentials and what we need to see. But I think everyone can agree
we
whether
are
we do it
challenging though, but the difference is between challenging and winning is the point.
well. Challenging and favorites for me are very different, right?
Yes, no, hundred
And
percent, 100%.
and to do that, it's missing 20 goals. Now, can you make that up in terms of improvement from the current forward line? Marginally, and you never know by what degree to have. But I don't believe that this team has a killer of guaranteed goals. And that is something that every title challenging team has had, no matter how collective and associative your front line has been. No matter how great it is that we have three forwards now in the Premier League that have 10 Premier League goals. That's excellent. I love that. But regardless, we need to have another killer. And yes, when your two striker options in Eddie and Nketiah as well as Gabriel Jesus underperform XG to the degree that they do, it's not to say that you ignore the great work that they do in general play, but it does mean you're missing goals that you're leaving on the pitch.
I
That
mean,
that is
are you with
fundamentally
me? Are
true.
you with me that I personally feel like we play with a two striker formation? That's how I feel. That's when I look at this pitch and I see how our left winger and our centre forward operate. It's not as if they're both operating in similar positions. Like I don't
Well,
feel like we work with like okay, this we have a 9, a left wing and a right wing. The
well,
right
you know
wing,
my ultimate modern theory about the 2-2-6 and how it's going to be something that we move towards. And you know how, for me, we've wanted a versatile attacker that can go across different front lines in addition to your off the ball striker. Um, those are two things that I believe that we're going to be seeing quite a bit more of. Um, do I need that kind of versatile striker? Not really. I think Gabriel Jesus, Emil Smith Rowe, they all fit those kind of things, those kind of descriptions. I think Martinelli, as we've said, is somebody that we believe to be someone that we foresee down the middle. But in order to do that, you
the one
definitely
thing
need
the
another
one thing I
option
will say though,
in the attack.
the one thing I will say though, is bringing in a Victor Osimhen. We have a channel runner that is dominant in the air at the club already. I feel like in Martinelli, you have a similar profile in terms of being able to run the left channel, being able to be dominant in the air, being able to link play at an elite level, being able to be a goal threat as well as a link up player. I think we have that at the club. What we don't have is a one-on-one threat from the left hand side. That's what I feel.
Look.
personally.
I think Martinelli can do it, but we've seen the limitations in this poor run of form. We've seen limitations about what happens when he's touchline versus when he's central. And I will agree, whatever side you particularly feel he ends up as, will dictate what profile you want to target. But if you're asking me, what does this front line need? It's missing efficiency in it for sure. We leave far too many goals on the pitch, not just in this
But this is
game,
the thing with
but
with the left wing you're suggesting. I just think that he's not exactly the biggest. Like he's not a goal efficiency finisher. I don't
who?
think. What Rafa?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
He's not as efficient in front of goal
He
as.
is. He is. When he is grown out, that is a Ballon
Yeah, but
d'Or
this is the
efficiency
thing.
machine.
This is the point. Is when he's grown out. Right
It
now,
takes within 6 to 8 months. That is a boy that is ready to leave Serie A. That is a boy, by the way, that has been put second striker with no help between the lines, in a change in role from Pioli. If we're going to get into it, that boy right now makes you the destination for having the best wingers or wing pairing, not just in the league but
yeah,
in the world.
wing pairing, yes, but
Um,
do you not think that his finishing technique needs work?
like a little bit, but he's got excellent ball striking. He is in that kind of cheating XG mold. That's the kind of player he is. And what it does is it pushes your most efficient finisher, Martinelli, central. So you're putting goals in the team.
And this is what I don't think people understand. It's what a lot of people say. Oh, you're looking for a Leao replace. You're looking for a Martinelli replace, a Nelly replace. He's not. He's a Jesus replacement. He's someone that will push Martinelli central and force Jesus to the bench. That's the issue.
Well,
And that
regardless of whoever you choose, mate, like I don't get this idea. Like whether you want a striker, a left winger, a right winger, you're pushing people out. Like we've got to the point where we are a good team. Shock horror. That means that you're going to have to recruit more. And that also means that you're going to have another competition in the Champions League that we're not able to kind of run out our plan B of high rotation and expect positive results. You need another player. I definitely need another attacking signing. I don't think that Mikel has had that, by the way.
he's had
It really,
one or
yeah,
two technically.
well, too. Well, yeah, Willian. I don't know if you want to count him, but then Jesus, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's it.
that's it. He deserves a marquee um, attacker. I don't care what it is. You can insert your favorite. I've made my case on Leao. I've done it for the longest time on here, and I think it's something that we get done. By the way, especially with the fact that Milan are looking at Valerian Balogun so seriously. There is an opportunity for a deal there. But fundamentally, just to answer the question, yeah, I definitely don't know if it's a striker that we need necessarily. I don't 100% agree with the position, but I completely agree. We are not fine with what we have. I do think that we leave goals on the pitch, and if we do want to maintain dominance over City, we need another 15 to 20 Premier League goals, and I think that comes in the form of a attacker, not necessarily a striker, but an attacker. Um, okay, mate. Maybe we should wrap up because we're getting into kind of questions, and we could do a pod. If guys in the comments, you guys make sure if you want us to do something similar where we answer kind of fan questions, and you think that would be helpful for the international break, let us know. Like we could do one of those pods again if everybody's prefers that. But I think before we go and we do our thing, um, quick wrap up on the game from your perspective, Kern.
No, I think this game shows that we have the capability to manage sort of these mid-table games. I mean, I remember before the Fulham, I was looking at games like Brighton and thinking, are we really going to be able to get through them? You know, are we going to be able to get through and get the 3 points against those kinds of teams, the Fulhams? I mean, we've played Brentford twice now, but those kind of teams, um, and we've shown that we can, and I think that we've shown an ability to be calm, to really pick our points, and really being able to free up spaces in the pitch, like I was mentioning earlier. I think that's so crucial to be able to not only both on a horizontal level but on a vertical level pull those kind of spaces apart and really find have players drop into those spaces and utilize them and really hurt players and break presses. I think that is something that's so crucial. So I'm happy. I'm happy to see that we are coming back with our attack being more fluid. I think that was the in that sort of blip, that was the problem where we just weren't being able to find that ability to find that first goal, especially games like Everton, where if we had just found that goal and found that first goal, kind of would have calmed everything down a bit, but we just didn't, and they kind of just found that corner and that header. So being able to get that first goal, calm the game down, calm down the crowd, I think that's something that we needed this game, and we found this game. So very happy, very pleased with the result, and I will be at the next two games, Sporting and Crystal Palace. So it will be fun to watch us up in person, both in Europe and the last game before the international break. So happy, pleased to see that Mikel's still lying. It's fun to see that he's got that in his locker where he's going to say no one's available where everyone is available. That was very fun. But yeah, confident going into the break, and hopefully we can see it out well. So yeah, all
Yeah,
good.
look, we've got 2 games left to really end strong. I think it was an incredibly dominant century type of win for Mikel Arteta. That was his 100th Premier League win for us, with another 5-game winning streak, by the way. This is our 3rd this season where we've had 5 straight games of wins, and that's not easy. It's
Ooh,
not been
ooh,
done.
last thing, sorry. This is the whole London Derby thing. I think we've mentioned it once.
I was
Where
just gonna get into
Oh,
that
you
last one as
actually?
well.
Ah, damn it! I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you go continue. I thought, I was hoping someone would bring that up. I
That
forgot.
was the last one. Well, yes, we are the first team, and not only just to win all of our London derbies, but to keep a clean sheet in all of our London derbies, which is absolutely incredible. But on the whole, Martinelli had great off the ball runs that pushed kind of Fulham's back line deep. His own personal record, it was his 5th goal in 5 games for himself. He's been on fire. Again, we talked how important Granit Xhaka was in terms of his decision making between the lines, but Trossard for me, man of the match. Incredible composure in his final action, both weak foot deliveries, but also as an outlet in build-up, adding a +1 in the middle of the park. So it was just a phenomenal game. We hope you guys enjoyed that review. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. And before you guys head out, if you could smash the like button, I know it really helps out the channel. You can catch us on all of our socials down here at GeorgeV_AFC or Curran at CurranBOP. And of course, Chris, who will be with us on the next one at CKFTBL. We are here, Ball Over Passion, or at BOP Footy on the Twitter. So, guys, thank you so much for sticking with us. We hope you enjoyed that quick little succinct preview of Fulham, and we will catch you guys for the preview of Sporting tomorrow. Have a good night, everybody, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.
Bye.